the loudest Commanders fan you're going to find anywhere in the DMV when this team does something right. Y'all know that about me. But today I got to be that friend who tells you the truth even when you don't want to hear it. Because while everybody's out here in full draft celebration mode, I'm sitting here staring at a decision Adam Peters made that has me genuinely bothered, and I'm not staying quiet about it. Something happened at pick 147 that nobody wants to look at honestly because the draft hype covers everything up. Not here though. Let's get into it. All right, I need y'all to picture this with me. The draft is moving. Peters is sitting in the war room in Ashburn. Pick 144, Sam Hecht, center out of Kansas State, goes to another franchise. Pick 146, Parker Brailsford, center out of Alabama, goes to another franchise. And then pick 147 comes up for the Commanders, and Peters takes Joshua Josephs. Edge rusher, Tennessee, two centers back-to-back, coming off the board while Washington sits there watching, and Peters decides what this team needs is more pass rush on a roster that already has Odafe, that already has K'Lavon Chaisson, and that now has Josephs on top of that. I need somebody to explain that to me with real football logic, genuinely, because I keep trying to make it make sense and I can't get there. Look, here's the real problem. Underneath all of this, Jayden Daniels was one of the most pressured quarterbacks in the entire league last season, and the pressure that does the most damage isn't coming from the edge. The pressure that does the most damage comes up the middle, through the A-gap, the kind that arrives when your center can't hold his block, and suddenly there's 300 pounds of nose tackle in your quarterback's face before he can even get to his second read. When that happens, it doesn't matter that Terry McLaurin is running a perfect go route down the sideline. It doesn't matter that Antonio Williams is getting separation from the slot. None of what you built in the passing game matters because the time is gone before it can be useful. That's the hard truth nobody wants to say out loud right now, and Peters had two chances to fix that, 144, 146, both passed, and he chose pass rush instead. Now, being fair because I always am, Peters' argument has its own logic. On day 3 of the draft, the best GMs in the league don't draft by need. They draft by value on the board. If Josephs was genuinely higher on Washington's internal board than any available center, the correct move within that philosophy is Josephs. That's how Belichick built dynasties in New England for 20 years. That's how the best organizations operate, and Josephs isn't an invented player. 6'3", 242 with a wingspan that Lance Zierlein from NFL.com literally called NBA caliber. He spent 3 years being invisible for the wrong reasons, playing second fiddle to James Pierce Jr., who dropped 10.5 sacks as a rookie in Atlanta. When you've got that monster lined up next to you, the pre-draft spotlights never find you no matter what you produce. And when Josephs finally became the #1 option at the LEO spot in Tennessee, he responded, "That says something real about who this player is, but here's what pulls my alarm, and I need y'all to hear me on this. If Josephs was such obvious value at 147, why did practically no mock draft have him in that range going into the weekend?" Hayden Minks from Underdog wrote back in March, "Joshua Joseph's speed and length has a crazy high ceiling for someone I've never seen in a round 1 mock draft. That sounds like an unknown player with upside. Not an obvious steal that Peters detected through superior scouting vision, and that makes me ask the uncomfortable question, did Peters genuinely have better information than everybody else, or did he fall in love with an athletic profile at the exact wrong moment? Because there's a massive difference between those two things, and from the outside, without access to Washington's internal board, it's impossible to know for certain which one it actually was. My honest take, and I'm saying it straight, I think Peters made a timing mistake. I'm not calling Josephs a bad pick in the abstract. I'm saying that at that specific moment, with 2 centers coming off the board right in front of him, that was the moment to make an exception to the philosophy and protect the most valuable asset this franchise has. Jayden Daniels is not just any quarterback. He is the quarterback, the guy we're building everything around. And the interior line that protects him should have been priority #1 at that moment. Full stop. If the interior line breaks down in a critical game during the 2026 season and Jayden absorbs clean interior pressure that costs a crucial drive, this pick is going to weigh on everybody. And it's going to weigh hard. But fam, tell me down below, do you give Peters the benefit of the doubt here? Or do you think he let a window close that's not coming back? Now look, everything I said about Peters' timing doesn't change what Joshua Josephs can actually become, and that deserves its own honest conversation. This dude spent his entire college career being invisible for the wrong reasons, not because he wasn't good, because he spent 3 years lining up next to James Pierce Jr., a player who at his peak was projected as a possible #1 overall pick. When you've got that guy on the same defensive line as you, it doesn't matter what you do. The pre-draft analysis machine is never going to find you. But the moment Pierce left and Josephs became the #1 option at the LEO spot in Knoxville, he responded, he was consistent, he produced, and that wingspan is real, fam. NBA caliber wingspan is not a term Zierlein throws around lightly. What does he need to develop? Variety in his pass rush. Right now, his rush package is predictable. Same burst, same track, every single snap. NFL tackles are going to adjust to that fast if he doesn't add an inside counter move that makes them hesitate for even half a second. And he needs more mass for run defense at this level. 242 is light for an edge position in the NFL. Can he develop all of that in Ashburn with the coaching staff they have right now? Possibly, but possibly in the draft is the exact distance between a steal and a forgotten pick, and nobody can guarantee which one it's going to be today. Logan Paulson said it well. He's a little bit of a gamble, but based on the film, one worth taking. A gamble at 147 with everything it cost in opportunity. I hope that gamble hits. I genuinely do. And to complete the full picture, because I'm not somebody who only attacks, Sonny Styles at #7 is one of the most exciting picks I've seen in burgundy and gold in years. 9.99 RAS, 43.5-inch vertical, the highest vertical from any player, weighing more than 240 since 1999. 100 tackles, 6 sacks, national championship with Ohio State, and Dan Quinn, who built the Legion of Boom in Seattle and got everything out of Micah Parsons in Dallas, now has a linebacker with those athletic measurements in his hands. That genuinely gives me chills. And the story about Sonny's father, Lorenzo Styles, telling London Fletcher that he wanted his son to be a commander because he trusts this organization and this coaching staff, that's not public relations marketing. That's a former player who won a Super Bowl with Fletch on the Rams saying, I trust what they're building there. That means something real about the culture Peters and Quinn are creating in Ashburn. Antonio Williams at 71 gives JD the compliment he needed alongside McLaurin. The questions we talked about are real, but the talent is there too. The draft class as a whole shows vision. Shows method. Peters is not improvising, but there's a gap at the interior line that he hasn't filled yet, and if the picks he has left in rounds 6 and 7 don't include any movement towards center, well, that question's going to be the shadow hanging over everything brilliant Peters built this weekend. I want the Commanders to be champions for real, and that's exactly why I don't stay quiet when something generates noise in my head. The fan who celebrates everything without analyzing anything doesn't serve their team. The fan who asks the hard questions, that one does. Peters has done brilliant things. #7 was brilliant. But 147 weighs on me, and I'm not going to pretend it doesn't just because the draft hype feels too good to interrupt right now. Tell me below what you think. Did Peters blow it by letting those centers walk, or do you trust the process completely? I'm reading every single one. Drop that like if this made you see today differently. Raise hail, Washington. See you in the next one.